We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Good evening, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray. That is Supermac and Gibbo on a Thursday night, and here we are to warm your cockles for an hour. Good evening, John. Good evening, Malcolm.
Hi, Steve. Hi, John.
Great to see you guys. As always, an hour to talk about Newcastle United. Plenty to talk about. A couple of major headlines today, of course. We'll come to Tonali in a bit, come to the injury situation in a bit as well. But let's look back at the game, first of all, John. Newcastle United played Dortmund in the Champions League last night. Disappointing result from everyone's perspective. The group of death now is in full flow. I think we can safely say the yellow wall was unbreached. It's now 1 draw, 1 victory and 1 defeat in the Champions League for Newcastle this season. I think a few harsh realities of the competition hit home at a sudden St James's Park last night. Yeah. What was your views, John?
Well, this cup's just dried out, actually. It's been soaking for the last 24 hours. By the end of the night, there was rain coming off the cap down my face and mixing with the tears that were coming from my eyes. So it was different. It's amazing, isn't it, this competition? It was a reality check. If we got carried away, and we had, and we deserved to, after all the weight we've had, we were carried away, etc., etc. That was a reality check about the gulf there is between domestic football and top European football. And the amazing thing is, we've gone to two extremes, hasn't it? Back-to-back games, Newcastle 4, Paris Saint-Germain 1, Newcastle 0, Borussia Dortmund 1. All of a sudden, the mood is so different. It was so perfect after Paris Saint-Germain because of the performance and the terraces were buzzing, etc., etc. And this was reality. And you just said it there. The group of death is back on. It is a group of death again because we're exactly at the halfway stage, and somebody's going to die a violent death. And when you look at the Newcastle situation, there's three things on. There's the qualification to continue in the Champions League. There's finishing third, which is the position we're in at the moment, and going into Europa League. Or there's finishing bottom, and that's death, literally, because you're out of Europe. I don't fancy us to finish bottom because I think AC Milan are heading in that direction. But second or third is really tough. And we are the slight outsiders now, because what killed me, we've repeatedly said on here, guys, haven't we, that if Newcastle are going to qualify for the next stage of the Champions League, we win our home games, because that's the way you qualify. You win at home, and anything you pick up away is a bonus. Now, this game was so vital that at least we didn't lose, and hopefully we won, because now we're facing 2 away games on the trot in AC Milan. Paris Saint-Germain are top of the group. They were hopeless at Newcastle, but they won't be in their place, I bet. And Dortmund, in a fortnight's time, when you saw them play against us, do you fancy going over there with 80,000 if the yellow wall waiting for us at that end? Because I thought their fans were fantastic, by the way. I mean, from the beginning to the end, you could hear the drums incessantly, never stop, never missed a beat. And that, plus Newcastle's performance in the first half, plus the rain, that's as quiet as I've heard our crowd. And I could hear their crowd, and there was only 3,000 of them or less. I could hear their crowd throughout the game, even before they scored. It was tough. I'm not losing heart or whatever, but it was tough. It was an opportunity lost being at home. And of course, we will be coming on to it. With all the injuries plus Tonali that's come along, it's a bad old time because we're back down to the bones.
Well,
Because
let's talk about the game first. Let's talk about the game first, John. From your perspective, right? I'll give you my perspective. Newcastle United came up against a team which has had countless years' experience in the Champions League. They came up against a team that had to win last night at all costs, but most importantly, knew how to win. And I genuinely felt that we will have learned a lot more from that than we learned from any other game this season. Eddie Howe will have learned a lot. The players will have learned a lot. And I think that we were unlucky. If you look across the game and you look at the fact that we lost Isaac early, which disrupted play. We lost Murphy when he came on as a sub. He didn't play 10 minutes. He got dislocated his shoulder. The only tactical change really in amongst the game was Dan Dunn coming off the target, which was a wise move. I personally at half time was saying that we should have moved Trippier to left back and brought Livramento on at right back. I was hoping he would be brave enough to do that, but he didn't. But those two injuries, I think, disrupted our play. I think we were worthy of a draw last night. I really do. We all see the game differently. I came out of the ground last night, soaking wet like everybody else, listening to people ranting and raving, going on about this. I love walking out that ground with my hat on or my hood up, listening to what people say. And I don't comment, I don't say anything, I just listen. And there were so many different opinions. That's what makes football exciting. But this is a football match, John. We'll come to the injuries and that in a minute.
Yeah.
What did you make of the football game? Because I enjoyed the game. I never left the ground. I don't like Newcastle getting beat, but I didn't leave the ground disappointed. I didn't go to the ground thinking we're going to beat them 5-0. My prediction was 2-1 to Newcastle. I felt we had enough to beat them. And if the ball had gone either side of that post or bar last night, it would have been a different story. Newcastle would have won 2-1. But we didn't get the rub of the green last night either. But you don't want to blame it on that. We weren't good enough in the first half. Dortmund were. The second half, Newcastle played well, didn't get the rub of the green. Injuries affected it. I just think we'll learn. I think we'll learn a hell of a lot from that last night, John.
I think it was costly learning. Because of the points that we sacrificed 3 points. Even a draw would have been a decent result under the circumstances because it would have denied Dortmund 2 points. Not the point we got, but the fact that they didn't get 2 points. I thought in the first half, Newcastle weren't at the races. I thought
100%.
They looked very much the better side on all the things you said at the start of that, which was the experience, the nous, the ability. They've been round the block several times. They had good players all over the park. The second half, we were bound to come because we're at home. And we're a good team. We're home and we're a good team. So we were going to have a lot of the play. And they could game manage the game second half, make certain that Newcastle don't come back too much. And yes, we talk about what happened at the end. And if we want to be biased, and we're all biased, hitting the bar twice, Newcastle could have got a point or one. The second one, by the way, we didn't hit the bar. It was a shot that was deflected onto the bar, which is very, very different. Luck played a part in that. But in the first half, I thought I was very impressed with them. And first and foremost, they wanted to play. They had something to play for. They had to win, as you said, Steve. But as said before the game, this will not be like Paris Saint-Germain, mind. because they rolled over. They were full of ego. They were full of, we should win this. And when it didn't happen with Mbappe and all of the big names, they stuck their hand and were arrogant and said, oh, well, if you want it that much, you can flip and have it. The Germans were never going to do that. Never, ever going to do that. And I think we've got to remember when we talk about what happened late in the game with Newcastle, but for two of the greatest saves I've seen since Monty at Wembley in '73, when Pope made that double save in the first half, they would have been out of sight at half time. Remember when he went down in the second one when he got up and got there again? What a save that was! And without that, they would have run away with it. I mean, not many sides win at Newcastle. I know Liverpool have this season, but it's always Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal. I think are the only three sides in the league, the Premier League, that have won at Newcastle since Eddie Howe come in, and Dortmund did here. And why it was a double loss, I think, Steve, to us not getting that point or the 3 points, is that the next game we go there. Now their tails are going to be up and ours are not, because they fill the ground with 81,000, you know. And if they make as much noise as those 3,000 up in the crow's nest did last night, we're not going to hear the referee's whistle go to start the game or finish it. I thought their support was colossal. I mean, having said all I've said there, I'm not losing faith, because our recent results are played 9, won 6, drawn 2, and lost only the 1. So I'm not going to start slating us when 4 days earlier we'd been magnificent against Crystal Palace. But because I'm biased and because I'm a Geordie doesn't mean that I've got black and white blinkers on. And my eyes told me something different that I perhaps didn't want to see. They were cute, they were clever, and they were experienced. Yes, hopefully we'll have learned, but it's a costly lesson.
Yeah, Alan Thompson, good point. He says Dortmund were a class above. I agree 100%. He says Pope was our man of the match. That says it all. I was hoping for 1-1. I was more gutted about the injuries than the result last night. I think that was the kind of philosophy that I came out of the match with last night. And I thought Anthony Gordon had a good game. I thought there was no service for Callum Wilson. I think Malcolm might have struggled last night getting a goal. He would have to go looking for the ball deep to get anything.
That's only because he's in his 60s. You wouldn't have stopped originally.
Malcolm, give us your take on the game last night, mate.
I thought that Dortmund in the first half were absolutely magnificent. Their positioning, they were outrunning Newcastle. They were quicker than Newcastle. They were stronger than Newcastle. And there aren't many teams that will do that to our side. And they got forward very, very quickly. And really played it between themselves, but they got moved forward, and some of their positioning was absolutely tremendous all the way through. I felt that we got caught out, but in that first half, Dortmund, they looked to me the best side that we've played of the 3 games. I thought that they were better than both AC Milan and Paris Saint-Germain. Overall, looking at the whole 11 of Dortmund, I was hugely impressed with them. Second half, we came to terms with it much, much better and looked to get right back into the game. And when the game was finished at 1-0, but we hit the bar twice. It could have been the back of the net if there was a difference of an inch. Callum Wilson missed a real sitter. It was most unusual for him. So I think that we've got things that we can look at and say, well, when you're getting completely outplayed, you come out of the second half and you get yourself right back into the game. So full credit to the team for that, for doing that. And it was sad that they weren't rewarded, that the ball was hitting the bar and chances weren't being taken. But I I do feel that we can take some confidence out of that game for what it was. I was seriously impressed with the way in which Dortmund knocked the ball around and moved it forward very quickly. They looked a hell of a side to me, and their positioning. They stretched Newcastle out width-wise, lengthwise. They had Newcastle really stretched, and tactically, I thought they were magnificent. But what we've got to remember is that Newcastle, by heavens, we've been scoring an awful lot of goals. And so last night it was misses. Well, that's always going to happen now and again. When you are scoring freely, you're going to get frustrated, and it took place last night. What I think is most important now is that Newcastle go down on Saturday to Wolves and look to give them a right spanking. Get back on track immediately. That's absolutely vital. But I was in awe of the German side when half time came, but at the end I was ruining the misses and the and I think the crossbar's an inch too low personally. But yeah, I think they need that measured. But
what I've said in the past, like Malcolm has a very famous phrase, which is absolutely correct. Never knocking away a point when you're playing in the Premier League. I've always said in the past, if you hit the bar too much, it's bad shooting. You're supposed to shoot under the bar, not hit the bar. So I've always had a feeling. I don't know. I mean, let's look at the positives and negatives with individuals. I mean, I thought Pope played terrific. Yes, he flapped it a couple of crosses in the air, but some of the saves he made, and that double save
double save was fantastic. Yeah,
remind me of Monty against Leeds in '73, and even Banksy and Guadalajara before that. I mean, that was magnificent. I thought Gordon was lively and was at the forefront of anything we did good, apart from his shooting. If there's anything wrong with his game, it's he doesn't finish well. He doesn't finish well often enough. He doesn't get enough goals. But he really is the hub of what we are all about. Having said that, there was a few that were below par. I thought that was one of Trippier's poorest games, and he's normally so important to us. I felt the midfield wasn't right at all. I felt Big Joe in his 2 comeback games has looked well off what he's capable of being, and that's understandable. He had a long time off before that, but he's not the dominant powerhouse of a player. He is at his best.
And he looked a plodder last night, didn't he?
Yes, he did, Malcolm. And Longstaff, I mean, I think that he's physically not well. And I don't mean injury-wise. I mean like an illness or under the weather with flu or whatever. He wasn't the bubbly, vibrant guy that he can be and that he is when he's box to box. And, he and the look on his face, and he looked as if, I'm struggling with the weather. And I don't mean the rain. I mean being under the weather. And both were taken off, Longstaff and Joe Linton, which at the best, they would be the last 2 to come off. I thought we struggled. I thought we lost it in the middle of the park, to be truthful. We probably lost the game in the middle of the park. And as much as I'm an admirer of Callum Wilson as I am Isaac, I think Isaac is more suited to European football. He's got clever feet. He's got great pace. He runs in behind people. He stretches teams. He runs in behind. He's got vision. He's got
and he moves all about, John.
Absolutely.
He'll go all over the pitch.
Yeah,
to
Wilson
find
plays
that bit of
between the
space.
posts.
Callum Wilson, he just plays
Between the posts.
between tram lines. Yeah.
So I think, you know, as Steve was saying early on, I think Isaac's injury did us no favor so early in the game. Did us no favors whatsoever. And by the way, you know, just to mention, did I feel sorry for Jacob Murphy? I forecast that Almiron would start, and he did. And I said Isaac would start as the only two changes, and that was so. But Murphy, on his performance against in the previous game, I mean, never deserved to be out. He was truly magnificent.
Well,
And
yes, he was. For me, he was star match. I know other people have made Trippier star match, the star man.
I thought Murphy was,
but John, yes, I thought Murphy was as well. Yeah. I thought he was absolutely top class. Apart from the goal that he scored to get the score sheet going, the crosses he was getting in were fantastic into the box. But so why, John? You must have heard something that caused you to suggest that he was going to be left out for Almiron.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it personally.
No, I believe it was part of, when I say a plan, I'm saying in inverted commas a plan, before the game against Palace by Eddie Howe. Look, lads, I want Murphy and Wilson to run their socks off and run themselves into the ground, Palace, and get us 3 points. And I'm going to play Isaac and Almiron in the game.
So it was pre-planned before the Palace game.
Yeah. It's part of this spreading of the load idea. You know, whether that's a good idea, whether it's necessary, that's a totally different argument. But as part of that, this was part of the plan. But for Murphy to then get on and be on for less than 10 minutes and do his shoulder, which is going to keep him out for yonks, by the way, dislocated shoulder. He's going to be out for ages. I mean, he screamed when he went down. It wasn't just the pain. It was because he knew he was done. He knew that was the finish of him, not just that night, but for weeks. And that's a terrible blow to the lad. It is to us as well, because he does well for it, but it's a heck of a blow to the boy.
John, I did something very similar when I was 17. To the shoulder at the back, and even now, I have almost like a constant pain from it.
It's awful.
It's nasty.
Awful.
Yeah, I've got to say the situation last night for me with the supporters. I can see a lot of people in the chat. You'll have seen the messages coming up, lads. I thought War Flag's display was good. I thought PSG was better. I did feel it was a little bit contrived and organised last night, whereas in the past it's been spontaneous. Yes, I felt the organisation with with Rob Byron, great guy who does the stadium announcing, telling people what to do. Look, that doesn't affect the atmosphere. I also see people commenting tonight in the chat, and I've had a lot of WhatsApp messages about it today and text messages about what people would say day trippers. We knew this was going to happen, lads. We knew people were going to get tickets for games who don't know the songs, haven't been to a game. It's going to happen. That's what happens with success. And as the stadium grows and gets bigger, that's what's going to happen. But I've got to be honest, lads, I don't know what you felt. Where I sit, I didn't think the atmosphere was too bad last night. And I felt that the away support enhanced our support. I felt a lot of the areas that don't normally sing were singing last night. Yeah, the game wasn't going our way. I think as the game dragged on, the weather, etc., was drifting in and soaking everybody in the stands. But I still think we gave it a good go as a support last night. What did you think, lads? Because I think we all have. It depends where you sit.
It does depend where you sit.
It does depend, especially in these big stadiums these days, 52,000 seater. I felt where I sit that the atmosphere wasn't bad last night. I've been to worse games this season than last night. What did you think, John?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about it's where you sit. Because it's the noise that's going on around you, isn't it? That influences you as to whether it's good, whether it's not. I mean, I mentioned very early on, I have never heard supporters come to Newcastle and be heard as consistently and as loudly as the Dortmund fans were. I mean, if I take my black and white hat off, I think they were absolutely terrific. The Dortmund fans. I mean, I don't want them to be, but I think they were.
They were a credit to that club and a credit to that country, the Germans.
They were. And they are as we are noted, we have, all three of us here and other people, have continuously for about 18 months now talked about war flags and the wonderful Geordie support, and that this St James's Park is a different class to anything in this country. And you can have the Etihad, you can have the Emirates, you can have the Cop even with You Never Walk Alone. I didn't think I'd ever say that. You can have Wembley, you can have anybody you like. The best atmosphere is at St James's Park. But Dortmund in Europe and Dortmund in Germany have the reputation Newcastle have in England. I'm talking about the fans. And throughout Europe, they've got that reputation because they've been in Europe. And I am looking forward to hearing 80,000 of them in the return, and yet I'm not looking forward to it because I don't want to give an added advantage to Dortmund. But sure. I thought we were, by our sky-high fan stature, I thought we were relatively quiet last night.
John, have you thought that the way that Dortmund played from the very beginning, they took the game over? Do you not think that the fans were watching that and went into a bit of awe?
Yeah, I think what happened, Malcolm, and you've more or less hit the nail on the head. I think Newcastle fans were so absorbed in, can we get back into this game? Come on, lads, get a grip. We can sort this. We can still. They're watching in quiet because they're thinking this all the time and they're looking at the game and that, and there wasn't a spark on the field in that first half to give them a constant lift. And they were on top. And then of course the weather, dear, when it chucks it down like that, and you had to be at the game as we three were to know what it was like on telly. You wouldn't know how bad the conditions were, and it was difficult to get roused. And they were all, how we try to organize things, Steve, with war flags and with this and with that and with the other. They were organized. They've got the drummers who get a beat going and they chant to the beat, and they were very organized in the type of support they gave, and it was relentless. I mean, did they draw breath at any stage? They could swim underwater all the way back to Germany because they don't have to take a breath. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I will never be critical of the Newcastle United fans because because we're all fans here, as well as being an ex-player, a hack, and a number one supporter. We, because we're all Geordie lovers, have been so grateful to the fans, and the fans are so important to us. I felt for once we met a club where their fans are so important to them as well, because I think that's what the Dortmund are, the German version of us.
Yes, yeah, I would agree on that, John. Yes, very much so. Yeah,
okay.
But they were in really good spirits, weren't they? So that was nice. There was no aggravation from them.
It was from the kickoff as well, Malcolm. It was from the kickoff. They didn't suddenly get the wind when they were 1-0 up. They spent the whole, it was from the kickoff. That was the way it was going to be, and I'm certain it'll be like that in Germany, which will only make for a terrific atmosphere. There's no question about that, but it'll only make Newcastle's job that much harder as well.
Yes.
All to do in the group of death. Newcastle United have got 3 games left, and that's a big. We're at the halfway point. 2 away games and a home game. That home game against AC Milan could be crucial. And don't forget, if Newcastle finish 3rd in the group, potentially go into the Europa League as well. So it wouldn't be all over. But
no, we'll win the Europa League if we're going that, Steve. Don't worry. There's our first trophy. I
wouldn't worry too much about this, but it's been a great journey so far. 3 games left. Halfway through the show, though, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find out more about them from their website mrvickies.co.uk or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to United Group Travel, UK coach holiday firm based in Morpeth. There's no strangers on their tours, just people you haven't met yet. They're now taking bookings for 2024. You can call 01670 632 460, 0791 666 4174 or 07957 141 654, or go to the website unitedgrouptravel.com. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button underneath the video today. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video to like it. It does us a big favour. Click share to share to your other social media and let people know about NUFC Matters. We're also a podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify and other podcast providers. If you want to help the show financially, you can take out a £25 one-off membership. You get a scarf, a pen, a cup and a membership card. How do you get it? Go to nufcmatters.com, look for membership. If you've got a smartphone, then put your smartphone over the QR code and it will take you straight to that section on the website. We also support the food bank on this channel. You can donate to the food bank today by going to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. We do support events on this channel as well. If you've got an event, please send it in and we'll promote it. The Tyne Theatre and Opera House are doing a Keegan, Beardsley and Waddle event, the Class of 84, 25th of January 2024. Book now by calling 0844 249 1000. And the Tyneside Irish Centre, they're doing an event with Frank Clark and John Gibson on Thursday, December the 7th. You can get tickets from nufcmatters.com and they are priced at £15. There's also some tickets available on Groupon. Don't forget, you can catch me 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, with Rye, Dave and Daz on the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show, 7 till 9, and you can catch us on the Red, the Toon and the Cat and on Toon Radio's website. WhatsApp us on the day 0330 043 2002, the perfect way to start your day. Really enjoying doing the breakfast show, by the way, guys. 10 weeks in, it's 50 shows already tomorrow. It's been absolutely fantastic. Early mornings, but good banter with the Mackham and the Smoggy, and plenty to talk about, believe it or not. 5 days a week with the lads. And don't forget as well, they've got plenty of other programs coming out on there. So give it a look, toonradio.co.uk. Dead easy to find on your DAB radio as well. Okay, let's talk Tonali, John. We've been waiting for this. No more speculation. It's there in black and white. 10-month ban by lad. I think he got off lightly, John.
Yeah, he can't complain about it. I mean, we are biased. We want it to be as small a ban as it's possible. But I mean, this has been going on since the lad played for Brescia and for AC Milan. And no doubt it was carrying on at Newcastle, because if you're addicted to something, you don't just suddenly stop. You continue being addicted until you're confronted and do something about it. And hopefully, with all the help he'll get from Newcastle United and other sources, he'll be able to do something about it from now on in. But we've been expecting the 10-month ban. I mean, you know, as you say, it's more lenient than excessive. But having said that, when you suddenly realise he doesn't play in the Premier League again this season, he doesn't play in the Champions League again this season, he doesn't play in Euro 24 in the summer, and he doesn't play at the start of next season. When you say it like that, it seems an awful long time as opposed to lenient, which it is. The interesting thing I found, because none of this is new, we're just wondering when we're going to hear, and having heard today, that means he's out at Wolves and it starts now. So at least we know where we are. The timing, by the way, from Newcastle point of view, couldn't be worse, because it comes along with all the injuries we've got. All the injuries we've got in midfield with people like Anderson and now Tonali out. And as I say, Longstaff and Big Joe have been struggling a
Yeah,
little.
and we haven't got a big squad.
Oh, we are back down to the bones. And, so the time if the start of it is horrendous, but we knew it was coming. The interesting thing I find, and I'll tell you why I think it happened, is that unlike Ivan Toney, this lad is going to be allowed to train with Newcastle throughout.
Oh, is he?
Yes, he is. And I'll tell you why, Malcolm. He's
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
able to train with Newcastle throughout his 12-month ban on a daily basis. Now, it's one of three reasons why this has happened, and because it hasn't happened with Ivan Toney. He's just been able to train with them now because he's coming to the end of
Yes.
his
Last 6 weeks, isn't it?
There's three possible reasons why that's happened. One is because Toney cooperated with the authorities fully. He went along, said, "I did it, Governor. I'm sorry. It's ridiculous. I'll go out and spread the word with young people that this shouldn't happen, etc., etc." He cooperated. Toney didn't cooperate. Toney fought it right away through to the death. So you get nothing taken off when that happens. And perhaps Toney's attitude in not saying, holding his hands up, means that he was stopped from training as well. The second point that may be is that more offences. We don't know how many charges were laid before Tonali number, but with Toney, they ran to three figures. I mean, I think it was 150 odd bets that he'd had in football going back to Peterborough, way back in the time, like with Tonali. So maybe there was more offences. So therefore he got this. The third one, and the most obvious one why he's been allowed to train and Toney wasn't, is that the punishment is coming from totally different football associations. The English Football Association did the Toney thing. The Italian Football Association did the Tonali one. And of course, you can make your own rules on what you're allowed to do and not to do as an FA. And then that ban is from the Italian FA, but it's then backed by UEFA and FIFA, of course, because football's worldwide, as Toney would have been if he'd gone abroad. But it is the Italian FA decision that allows him to train every day with Newcastle.
Right. Now, you guys, do you believe that Newcastle were informed about this, or did they find out after Tonali signed?
Oh,
Because
We
if
can't,
they
we can't honestly answer that because we don't know. And
it's such a tough question.
We've got to be very careful publicly to say,
Yeah.
"Oh, AC Milan knew," because then they are guilty of something that's extremely naughty. It may well be that they knew. It may be that we have suspicions. But there's a heck of a difference between suspicions and proving it. And if you can't, and I tell you what, whether they did or not, and the odds are, and I know there's some people in football, and I could name you a couple of very high-profile people, which I won't, because it would be unfair. They were talking off the record, that believe that AC Milan would know everything, but that cannot be proved. And it's almost impossible to prove.
But the Italian authorities knew about it.
The
Italian authorities knew about it, and they are involved with the transfer. And I just think that for them to not inform the Football Association and the Premier League prior to the deal going through.
But the trouble with that, Malcolm,
major question marks. Major.
I think from our perspective, John, you're right, because we can't. I mean, look, we've been speculating for the last 10 days. We don't know the full ins and outs of this. All we know is that Sandro Tonali knows because he's committed the crime and he's held his hands up. He'll have told his agent, who now knows the full ins and outs. He'll have told his lawyer, who knows the full ins and outs. But ultimately, the authorities in Italy now know the truth because he's had a hearing. We're getting everything secondhand. We can't speculate as to whether AC Milan knew. I agree with you, John. And, you know, the fact that it looks as if it's been games involving AC Milan and Brescia, and, you know, speculation again that he was betting on the teams to win, which doesn't make it any better or worse. He's still betting on his team, which is wrong. I think the thing that's unfair is that he is being punished, but Newcastle United are being punished because we've spent £50 million plus on a player.
Yes. Well,
we didn't know anything about this.
Yeah, absolutely right. There's two things to be said on all this, on the little we know so far. You see, there's a great difference between a legal minefield and what we think in everyday life and what other people think. Now, from the point of view, which the interesting point Malcolm made about the Italian FA knowing about the inquiry, the interesting thing, if they had tipped off Newcastle and Newcastle didn't do the deal and Tonali's lawyers found out about that, and they would say, right, we're suing you. You decided we're guilty.
Suing who, John?
They're suing the FA the Italian FA for telling us because they weren't guilty, because at that stage he wasn't found guilty. You can't
I know,
make him guilty before he is guilty.
No, but if that is being investigated, just the investigation alone should have been made clear to Newcastle United before they signed Tonali. Well, the investigation was going on.
I know, but what if the investigation found that he was not guilty?
Well, okay,
and they've cost him the move to Newcastle.
Then the deal can
Newcastle would have pulled out. That would have been it. I mean, we're just playing devil's advocate. We don't know what what we do know is that Newcastle's lawyers are now looking into every aspect of the Tonali thing. They're going to stick with the player. There's no question about that. 100% he stays with Newcastle for the duration of his ban and afterwards. But they're going to look at the implications, the financial implications on whether they need to pay the whole fee, whether they can suspend what is due, because they're not paying it. They didn't pay it all in one lump. You know, there's some staggered payments.
Yes.
Do they then pay the staggered payments now when they can't play for a year, etc., etc.? But they're looking into all that. But believe you,
and also, John, there's another angle to be looked at, and that is that if AC Milan chose to transfer him, knowing that he was going to get banned for anything up to 3 years, get him out, because they didn't want the problem of paying a player who was suspended, and they left that with another club.
Only if they did that.
Absolutely wrong. It's certainly unethical.
But this is a presumption that they knew. Now,
of course they knew. Of course they knew. This investigation, how long has it been going on for?
Get yourself up to St. James's Park and tell them how it happened, and then they've got to get it. I think that 80% of people on Tyneside would agree with you, but without proof, you can do jack all. I'll make a forecast now. Naught will come of it.
But you don't.
You won't be able to prove it.
But if the Italian authorities all of a sudden a 50 million plus deal is about to take place to a player that's being investigated by the Italian authorities, and with a suspension, a possible long suspension of 3 years, is in the offing should he be found guilty, that they have a duty to inform the English authority, the English league.
Morally, but legally they don't. They didn't.
I'm not sure about that, John. I'm really not. Well,
we'll wait and see. We'll come out in the wash, because if they can do something about it. Newcastle United will do something about it.
What about Newcastle? I would imagine are going to pay in full Tonali's contractual agreement. The wages that he's contracted for, and they are going to pay that through the 10 months. Well, who should be liable for that?
Well, let's face it. Tonali should pay it himself. For me, there should be some kind of recompense from
Newcastle.
Tonali.
do have a choice that they can not pay him through that period of time.
Depending on what's in the contract, of course, I guess. But he's
in breach of contract because
he's unavailable. He's unavailable till August, isn't he?
Prevents him from playing.
Yeah, he's unavailable. He's unavailable till August.
What we're doing, guys, is second guessing everything because, as you said at the start of this, Steve, we just don't know enough detail. And in lots of the detail, we'll not get to know. We'll get to know a few things over the next 48, 72 hours because they come out now, especially in Italy, and then they will be reported back across here. But of course, there's another case involving England, Malcolm, with the lad that's at Aston Villa, who's been investigated as part of that.
A very similar situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they've got him on loan from the Turkish side.
Yes, they haven't paid a huge transfer fee to have him with them.
No, but they'll have an agreement to pay his wages.
Sure.
I'm sure that they can send him back, but then that leaves the problem with Galatasaray.
Yeah. Oh, it's a murky old business, and it
really is.
It always is. I mean, the bottom line is we can forget about him for a year. Team-wise, Yes,
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Newcastle United travel to Wolves this coming Saturday. It is a 5:30 kick-off. It is live on Sky Sports, coming live from Molineux. Eddie Howe's side go into the game unbeaten in their last 5 Premier League games. All 3,000 away tickets are now sold out. Team news, well, it's getting darker by the minute, as we've already spoken about tonight on the show. Harvey Barnes, of course, long-term injury. Sven Botman, as we know, is going to miss out. It's anticipated that Alexander Isak will be unavailable. Jacob Murphy and Elliot Anderson are going to be unavailable as well due to various ailments. Sandro Tonali, of course, now banned for 10 months, can't play till August. Also going to miss Euro 24 if Italy qualify. Good news from last night's game, which we haven't touched upon, is Joe Willock is in line to make his first Premier League appearance of the season, assuming that he suffered no reaction to his comeback in last night's game. One to watch as well, Bruno Guimaraes is 1 booking away from serving an automatic 1-match ban. He's coming very close to his 5 yellow cards, which is another talking point. Should we leave him out of the Wolves game because we've got Arsenal coming up at home after that? Anyway, early news for Wolves. Hugo Bueno is missing due to injury, but Mario Lemina and Nelson Semedo will be available after completing their suspensions. Gary O'Neill's side are unbeaten in their last 3 Premier League outings. They've had a 2-1 home win over Manchester City. Yes, that is Manchester City. And a 2-1 away win at Bournemouth. In between that, a 1-1 draw with Aston Villa at Molineux. So what I'll say to you is Wolves are no mugs. Referee Anthony Taylor, well, this will be his first game of the season for Newcastle United. And the last game that he took charge of was our 3-1 Premier League home victory over Southampton in April this year. On VAR is Jared Gillette. This is a tough game to go into after a defeat, lads. Every game is tough in the Premier League. I'll keep saying that. And of course, Newcastle want to make sure that they get back into those European slots for the end of the season. This is a big game, lads. Out of the frying pan, into the fire. And before you look at this game, I did this on the breakfast show this morning because with the injuries mounting up, you start looking at the fixture list thinking, well, I wonder when he's going to be back and I wonder when he's going to be back. But just listen to this. 28th of October, this coming Saturday, Wolves away. Wednesday, 1st of November, Manchester United away. Saturday, 4th of November, Arsenal at home. 7th of November, Tuesday, Borussia Dortmund away. Saturday, 11th of November, Bournemouth away. and then the international break. What a set of fixtures with this injury list mounting up, lads. So Wolves, lads, it's a tough game, this. John?
It is. And the point you've highlighted there, Steve, which I was going to highlight, what we've got coming up with a horrendous injury list and a suspension to Tonali is 4 of the next 5 games in 3 competitions are away from home. 4 of the next 5 games are away from home, and the home game is Arsenal. But you can't get much tougher than that with the possibility of Manchester City. So it is a heck of a run right now. And there's a lot of questions to be asked about the team to play at Wolves. For example, if it was up to me, would you play Target instead of Burner? I probably would. You're not going to have Botman back, so that takes care of that. What can you do in midfield? The answer is virtually nothing. You've virtually got to go with Longstaff, Bruno, and Big Joe because you can't start Willock after the long period he's had out. He's done well to come on. I mean, he come on ahead of time on the bench last night. We weren't expecting him to be able to make the bench so quickly. We certainly can't start yet. He hasn't played since last season, so he's not going to start. And Tonali's not there, so the midfield picks itself to start with the game anyway. And then at the front, I mean, we haven't got Isak when we could not have him for a while. That means can Callum Wilson start 3 games in a week, or playing 3 games in a week? He didn't start last night, but he virtually played the whole game because he was on so early. And he played the previous game. Can he start at Wolves and then start against Manchester United in the League Cup when we haven't got another centre forward because of Isak? I mean, we know his body's fragile. What on earth do you do about a centre forward? Now, the alternatives, we're not going to go into it too long, else the programme will be on till midnight. But the alternatives is Big Joe. We can't put him back at centre forward, even if we want to do, because he's needed for midfield. And therefore, we can't play Anderson as a false 9 because Anderson's not available. So the only other fella available to play a false 9 is Gordon. And you've then got to play somebody on the wing, and it can't be Murphy because he's not available. I mean, and it can't be Anderson outside left because he's not available, and it can't be Joe Linton outside left because he's needed in midfield. It is absolutely crazy. I mean, can you see Callum Wilson being available to start and play for over an hour at Wolves and then start and play for over an hour at Manchester United on Wednesday? That's what we're looking at, guys. That's what we're looking at. Having said that, a quick prediction before Malcolm, because Malcolm's got to say what he thinks, and the centre forward's interesting. Quick prediction: whatever team we send out down there, we need the points in the league, but above all, we need to get the bad taste out of our mouth about losing the way we did. Nonetheless, the last 9 games, we've won 6, drawn 2, and lost only 1. We've got in what Wolves are no mugs, as you said, Steve. There's no question about that. But also, there's no question they're not Dortmund. They're not the Champions League. They're a team that's 12th in the Premier League. So my head tells me that Newcastle will draw. My heart tells me Newcastle will win. And for once, I'm going to go with my heart.
Okay, what's your thoughts, Mal?
Well, on a general overall basis, with Newcastle finding themselves in this situation, they have got almost double the workload of most of the other clubs, the majority of Premier League clubs, and yet they are being so hindered in creating the squad that is required to play in the Champions League because of this financial fair play, and I think it's actually causing clubs to be highly unprofessional when they don't want to be. And Newcastle, they're getting caught out. John, you've just gone all the way through it, and that we're lacking players in certain positions now. we weren't allowed to bring those players in. Well, players of enough quality who are going to cost money, and what that with these rules of the financial fair play is that they don't take into account the competitions that you're playing in.
The one thing I would say in fairness, Malcolm, and I take this point totally, is with hindsight, and hindsight's a wonderful thing to have, and it gives you a huge advantage. But with hindsight, Newcastle spent about £60 million on the summer for 2 reserve fullbacks.
Yeah.
Could we have got more important positions with first teamers than
John,
2 reserve fullbacks?
I think you make a very good point there. Yes, Newcastle, they could perhaps have spent the money a bit better. But that's you just hope and pray that you're not going to find a situation developing that has actually now developed within the club. And so what I'm saying to it is that Newcastle, I don't think, would have been this short of players if they had been allowed to do extra because of the additional workload that they were taking on by qualifying for the Champions League. And this is where I feel that the financial fair play is totally wrong, and that they've got to rework the whole thing to take into account clubs that suddenly they move up the league, they're into extra competitions, and so of course, they need to bring in quality playing staff.
Result at Wolves, Malcolm?
Result at Wolves, I think we'll get a draw, John. And because apart from anything, the changes and alterations that have got to be made, it's almost like sending out a new side, and everybody's got to get used to everybody. They've got to get used to different positions and so on and so forth. So it's not going to be that smooth run that we've had over the past couple of months. That's for sure. It's going to be difficult. Wolves, they play some lovely stuff, but I feel that Newcastle are a better side than them. But there's a lot of changes, and that always takes a while just to get into a flow with it. Before
I ask Steve to give us his prediction and wind up the show, I'd just like to say one thing. I saw a lot of the messages passing the bottom of the screen there, and one of them said that we need Chris Wood back because, and I think it was tongue in cheek. But can I just say this? I can't see the wood for the trees, Steve.
Get him back.
I think if Chris Wood, bless him, come back tomorrow, that would just finish it. I would go over to the Tyne Bridge, cut my throat, and do a header.
John,
because really, I mean,
could you imagine him being out there on the pitch last night?
I think him and ESM would have made a difference, Malcolm.
Oh, yeah, I tell you what, Chris Wood would have made a difference. We would have lost 2-0.
Oh, dear me. There we go. I've missed the ASM discussion, lads.
Yeah. By the way, you're supposed to be wrapping the program up, not extending it by another hour, which is what
because you want to go over your tea. Jody Jumalay says, shave Tonali's hair and tash off and say it's Shelby. That's a great idea. My prediction for the weekend, lads, I am going for a 1-1 draw. I'll be happy with that, to be honest.
That's how I see it finishing, Steve.
I'd take a point, guys, after that game this week.
Yeah.
But just a quick shout out to all of you out there. I am working away next week, and I'm going to do a pre-record with Malcolm and with John this weekend, and we're going to take your questions. So if you've got a question, go to my Twitter, go to Malcolm's Twitter, quickly, because the questions are coming in thick and fast. Malcolm has put it out up there. He's pinned it at the top of his Twitter. And just leave a question under there. And you will be able to get a question asked. We'll record it. It's going to be 1 hour. So if you look for @9 Supermac on Twitter, post a question under there. We'll pick the best ones. And John and I will ask the questions at the weekend. And that will be going up on Thursday. John, Malcolm, have a great evening. And I will see you at the weekend. Take care, guys.
Yes, indeed. All right. And take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye, man.